What's going on, guys? My name is Nick. And I'm an indie game dev, and I'm going to explain to you the differences between Unity, Godot, and Unreal Engine 5. The reason is because if you're an indie game developer like I am, you might be wondering which game engine you should be using. There's a few different ones. Now, there's a bunch of different ones, I should say, not just a few. But the most common ones are Unity, Unreal Engine 5 are the two main ones, and then Godot is really rapidly basically coming into the scene. More and more lately, more and more game developers are using it. So I'm going to explain to you the differences and which one I am currently using right now at this minute, essentially. So first, we're gonna go through and talk about Unreal Engine 5. So let's go right into it. So Unreal Engine 5, there is a bunch of different stuff to it. So coding language, it could be easier to learn in a way. So most AAA not most, but a lot of AAA developers use Unreal Engine 5. The reason being is that it is easier for them to use and learn. There's a lot of documentation for it, and in some cases, um, what's the name? Epic Games, because they are the makers of Unreal Engine. They're the guys who make Fortnite and such. Um, there's a lot of instances where they might actually help you if you're a AAA developer. I know right now CD Projekt Red is actually getting help with them on the next Witcher game, whatever it's going to be called, whether it's Witcher 4 or whatever they're calling it. That is, they're basically going to be helping them make in some sort of way. I don't really know what that entails. Maybe if they run into like a bug or something, if they have a question, they'll call them up. But that's for AAA's. You're probably not going to get that kind of help if you're an indie game developer. So, but there is a lot of documentation with it that you can use and follow along. Programming wise, there's C++ if you're a coder, or there's something called blueprints. If you're not a much of a coder, so blueprints is basically like there's like a drag and drop kind of functionality to it that'll work like you're coding. It could be better for you if you're not much of a coder, like myself. I'm not much of a coder. When I went to college, I went for IT, and the first 2 years we had to take basically the same class as the other computer classes. So there was information systems, information technology, which is what I did, and there was computer science. First 2 years, we all had to take the same class, so I had to take a few computer science classes, which is your coding and such. And I was never really good at it. My brain just didn't really wire that way. But now going back to coding, it is a little easier for me to learn it to an extent because I know just from college. I just remember basically quite a bit, so it's a little quicker for me to grasp it now. But for someone who's not really much of a coder, that might be the way for you to go if to basically learn your blueprinting and such. Unreal Engine 5, you can also make high fidelity games, which is basically so the next Gears of War, so Gears of War E Day, that's the main Unreal Engine 5. You also had Hellblade 2, which made Unreal Engine 5, so like your very high fidelity games. I believe also don't quote me on this, but I believe Microsoft's upcoming game Avowed is also going to be Unreal Engine 5. Not 100% certain on that though, so don't quote me on that if that is the case. If that's not the case. So also Unreal Engine 5 is better for 3D games rather than 2D. So if you're planning on making a 3D game, if you're planning on making a 2D game, I'd recommend not doing Unreal Engine 5 and going for either Unity or Godot. Just because it is better for your 3D games. That's really what Epic Games focused on when making Unreal Engine 5. So, and now we're going to royalties. So, how Unreal Engine 5 does it, it's very simple and straightforward. It's all streamlined. So, really, when your game makes over $1 million, then Epic Games will start taking a 5% royalty. Now, they will not take the 5% royalty off the initial million you make, though. So, once you hit the million, then the 5% royalty kicks in. But before that, though, they don't take that anything out of the previous mill. So that is how they work. And then also, they don't take any royalty if you have your game on Epic Game Store. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to Unity. Unity, how they work with the royalties, they take they take what do I have written here? They basically start kicking in their royalty after you hit $1 million in gross revenue, and if you make 1 million, and if there's like 1 million people on initial engagements. Now, what do you mean by initial engagements? I'm really not sure. It's very kind of confusing to me when I see initial engagements. I'm assuming by people downloading it immediately, maybe. That I'm not 100% sure about. I know some of you people may call this stupid, but for people using Unity, I get it, because last year their CEO was an idiot. He came out there, is like, oh yeah, we're gonna take X amount of dollars per download threshold you pass. So for example, I have written here, they were like, all right, we're gonna take 20 cents per install once your game reaches 200,000 downloads and $200,000 in revenue. Which, now you may be thinking like, oh, that's nothing, that's fine. Well, me for example, if I were to play, let's say Cyberpunk 2077, right, on the computer, I have it downloaded on my computer, great. Let's say if I uninstall it, download again, awesome. Let's say if I install on my Steam Deck as well, because I have a Steam Deck, that would count as 3 downloads per the 200,000 to 200,000, and I'm just one person, so that adds up quite a bit. And then also, how they're keeping track on how many installs a person is doing. They're gonna have to have some sort of like malware embedded in the game or something in order for them to be able to track, like a spyware. In order for them to track is just not good. And then they quickly retracted and went to what I just said about the million in gross revenue and then 1 million in initial engagements. I'm not really sure how much they take after that though. So I think it might depend on per person. I'm not really sure. And also Unity is better for your 2D games. And such. But you can definitely make a 3D game in easy. There was a great game, Cult of the Lamb, that came out, I believe, 2 years ago. Phenomenal game that used Unity. So it was definitely great. And now we're going to go to Godot. So Godot is open source and fully free. By open source is basically there's a group of people that were that basically made the Godot language. And if I had a Godot, if I saw there was an issue with Godot that I needed to do something like some sort of specific functionality, I can go in there and code it in. And basically make my own changes to Godot to suit my liking. And their coding language is GDScript. But the problem is with Godot though, is that it does not have any documentation on porting to consoles. So if you're trying to port your game to console, I'd recommend do not use Godot. Either go with Unity or Unreal Engine 5 at that point, because it's gonna be a pain in the ass to even figure out how to get that over to console, whether it's PS5, Xbox, over the next generation will be called, or the next Switch, wherever Nintendo's next console is gonna be, and stuff like that. And now with royalties and stuff like that, Godot is fully free. There's no corporation behind it, as far as I know. I could be completely wrong on that. But Godot is fully free though. So you can make $20 million and not have to pay Godot a single thing. It's all you. Obviously, you got to pay some of the money to like Steam or something like that, because Steam takes like a 30% cut and Epic Games takes whatever. I know it's less than 30%. I think they're like 18. I could be wrong on that too. I think that was 18, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah. But now we're gonna go into what I use. I use Unity. Reason being is that Unity for me is just easier to learn. Because I tried Unreal Engine 5 beginning of this year, and it was just way too complicated for me. It was just out of my ballpark. I have a pretty powerful computer. It's not top of the line, but it is pretty powerful. And my computer was able to handle it fine. But I don't know. Unreal Engine 5 to me just seemed too sluggish for me. It just was not intuitive enough, and I didn't like it. I tried it for like a month, and I was like, no, this isn't for me. So then I went to Unity. I actually really like Unity. I like the way it navigates, stuff like that. I'm not much of a coder, but as I'm learning C Sharp, and I'm just making my way through that. So game development, at the end of the day, game development is not easy, but once you find your stride and your groove, it's just a lot of fun. I just love the world building and stuff like that. And also, I forgot to go into too is that Unity Unreal Engine 5 also has asset stores. So if you need any sort of assets, you can always go to those stores and buy whatever. There's also some free ones. I'd also recommend you make your own assets if you can. Not everything you can, you might not know how to make and such, but I am loving my game development journey though. Indie game dev is just a blast for me. I just like making worlds and stuff like that. And I'm making Unity. Now, you may call me stupid, as I said before, because with the scare Unity tried doing last year with their pricing, I just hope they don't go back on that. But who knows, because they did lose a lot of consumer trust last year when they did that. So luckily they fired that last CEO. They quickly pushed him out the door like, yeah, you can kind of go. Because he did tarnish the Unity name. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, whatever you feel comfortable using, like if you're like, hey Nick, I like Godot, great, use Godot. Or hey Nick, I like Unreal Engine 5 better, great, use Unreal Engine 5. Use whatever you want, just as long as you understand what you're doing and it's just, and you're enjoying it. You know, at the end of the day, game development it is fun and you're creating your own world. So I am going to end this video here. If you have any questions for me, leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video.